do you have a technical background or not? Because this is going to help me know how deep to dive technically. Right, so we have 6 people. So yeah, cool. 7 people out of 17, so or like out of maybe except for the 2 of 15. Then I guess I'm gonna keep it more on the business side and explain the technical terminologies as we dive deeper into them if we had to. Thank you so much for raising your hands. Now let's get right to it. So in order to understand agents, I think we need to have the context of how did we get to agents, right? So AI agents, everyone's talking about it. But how did we get there? So first off, we started with chatbots, which are basically just text. You say something, it replies to you. Well, the problem was is that it will not do anything. It will literally be useless, completely useless. If you're not there on your computer, just telling it stuff, right? Unlike an employee, I like drawing the analogy between AI agent and employee, by the way. So an employee just does stuff for you on their own or like for the company. And also the problem with chatbots is that the bandwidth is limited. Like you have to tell it something and then wait for the response and then do that again and then iterate until you reach whatever it is that you want to do. And you just keep copying and pasting the outputs from ChatGPT if you're maybe doing something for marketing and pasting it to produce the content whatsoever. So that's why they're limited, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, they're a huge revolution, but they're limited. Um, Yeah, I think, yeah, don't get me wrong, because I know I'm like in this presentation, I'm hating on chatbots. So I just wanted to put this slide to like give them some credit before we move on. Language is very important. Chat is extremely important. This is how we humans dominated Earth, just because we have a vocal box. Neanderthals, our closest relative, never had that, and so they went extinct. So language is obviously extremely important. And it made us the super organism we are today. It's like we are greater than the sum of our parts because we can communicate through language and we can communicate across generations through writing, which is also language. So language is great. The fact that we have cracked this out in terms of technology is huge. It's amazing. Don't get me wrong, but it's not enough. So throughout this presentation, we're going to see why it's not enough and how to fix that. So first off, to solve the bandwidth problem of using language or like written text, we resorted to multimodality. So the next evolution beyond chatbots was the multimodal evolution. Multimodal is just a fancy word that we use for saying that it has more senses than just understanding language. So it understands pictures, it understands voice, it understands videos. This is pretty much what it means when I say multimodal. But not just understand, right? So it's a chatbot is an input-output system. You give it something and then it replies to you. So now you can give it your voice, your image, your video, but now it can also reply in a multimodal sense. Like it can reply with images, videos, and voice. So that was great in terms of maximizing the bandwidth. A video has much more information. A picture tells 1,000 words, you know. So you have more bandwidth and flow of information, which expanded the range of use cases, but still, you have to be there, and it doesn't do anything on its own. And that's why we went to agentic AI. So imagine that you no longer need to prompt it manually. It just knows what it needs to do, the AI, and it knows when it needs to do it and does it automatically. So this is the era of agentic AI, where the AI senses a trigger and then executes a plan on its own. So this approach existed conceptually, but now it's much more practical with the LLM revolution that we had. And I'm gonna tell you how it was in the past and how it evolved. So AI right now, it can be scheduled like an employee. You can tell ChatGPT, for instance, I need you to run daily at 8 a.m. or just wake up when we get a new email and then do something, which is sort of similar to when you're training a new intern, right? You just tell them, hey, whenever we get an email, just do this or come ping me or whatever. Or at 8 a.m. every morning, I need you to be here in the office. So it's more or less of the same. Now, once the AI is triggered, it's like, okay, it's 8 a.m. What do I need to do now? It plans how to handle the incoming data and executes actions. So a historical case that we all know is trading bots, right? We all know that the stock market is controlled by trading bots, like Aladdin from BlackRock and whatnot. Now, how do these guys work? They've been there, and they've been there for so long. It's just that their AI brain is not the LLM transformer brain that we have now, not the same technology. But at the end of the day, it's an agent. Now, I think this is the moment where I pause to define what an AI agent is from the textbook. What does the textbook say? So an AI agent is any AI model that can see or sense the environment and act. That's it. Just sense the environment and act. So in a trading bot context, it's an agent because it senses the price action and it acts in terms of deciding to sell or to buy or to leverage or to short. I mean, it's now a lot of things, but just to simplify it, it has actions, sell, buy, and it has context or a stream of input from the world that it lives inside of. Now, AI playing chess also sees the world of chess. Its world consists of the pieces, white and black, and their relative positions. And the actions it can do is pick a piece, move the piece from to. So that's an agent. Robotics, obviously, is also very agentic because a robot can see the world and act into it. But the modern examples that the large language model revolution enabled agents to do would be something like customer service agents. You could just phone someone up or a company, and instead of them replying, you get an AI replying. It senses the whole conversation and the data about how to respond to you based on the company's information. And the action it has is not just to reply to you, but to take notes on the CRM and say, hey, this guy called me today and this is what he said, and I have resolved his case, and maybe escalates to human support. So it has actions to perform inside the organization. Now, don't try to grasp this customer service concept too early because we're gonna dive deeper into it when we get to the use cases part of this presentation. But just to give you an idea, and also workflow automations. So workflow automations have been there forever, right? We've all heard about robotic process automation and workflow automation way before AI was popular. I wouldn't say invented, but popularized because AI has always been there. What's the difference? Why is now workflow automation suddenly a thing again? Well, it's because in previous automations, it was just if then workflows, right? It's like if the email contains this very specific keyword, respond with this very specific template. And the best we could do was to swap out variables. It's like just swap out the last name and take the last name from the person that sent the email. That was as smart as the workflow automations got. So it was just deterministic if else workflows. We know that if the email looked like this, it will end up doing that. But the revolution in workflow automation, now that we have AI or LLMs, is that no, you can actually tell the AI in natural language the concept of how you want to respond to people without mentioning specific keywords or giving it specific templates. I'm telling it whenever you decide, keyword decide, that's the new part in AI automations now. Whenever you, the AI, looks at the email and then decide to send an email, then you have the freedom to send them whatever sends the message that we want them to get. So it no longer has templates and it's no longer deterministic. If I send it an email, I'm not entirely sure what the response is going to be anymore, if there's going to be a response. It decides if it wants to respond and it drafts the parameters for the action. In the email case, the email body itself. So that's the revolution. Now, we have a new technology that we can plug into AI automations that analyzes stuff that's happening and decides. not only decide, but also perform the action after making the decision. So that's why it's now a thing, again, to do workflow automations. So how does it happen? So let me give you a quick example of an AI agent. Now, I mentioned that we built Computer, which is basically the AI agent that controls the computer. Now imagine what does this agent do? So first off, its environment is a computer. It can perform actions like see a screenshot of what's on the screen, and then it can control the keyboard, and it can control the mouse. So let's see a quick demo of how that might look like, and then we're gonna go back. So this is Computer. If I tell it to browse, open the browser, go to a technology website, find an interesting article, and then create a text document summarizing the article's key points. So these are my hands. I promise I'm not doing anything. So the AI agent is living in this virtual desktop environment, taking a screenshot, looking at the screen. It's like, okay, what's going on right now? And then deciding to do a left click. It decided to open TechCrunch. It decided to do a task list to complete whatever it is that it's doing. And it will just keep going on and on until it finishes the task. Now, this is something that you can tell, hey, go to my email and summarize it. Go find me a plane ticket. But at the end of the day, this is something that was completely impossible before the invention of large language models that we have turned into AI agents. Because at the core, this is an AI model. But it's capable of doing that because it has an action called take a screenshot, use the keyboard, scroll down, and so on. So that's an example of what we can do with AI agents today. But for your company, now let's go deeper. For how to find a company-specific solution. This is something, I showed you this, by the way, because it's generic and sort of gives you this wow moment. It's like, this guy might tell us something interesting. But how to find the actual use case inside of your company. So to do that in your company, you need to find where's the information in my company? That's the first thing you need to ask yourself. Where's that data? Because the AI needs to see a certain world. Now, what is that world for my company? So for most companies, that's usually an ERP system or a CRM, where it's mainly the systems you normally your employees normally use, right? So it could be the ERP, it could be the CRM, it could be any kind of software that you use to operate your business. Now, you automatically understand that this is the world or the environment that my agent needs to live in, just like my employee traditionally lived inside of that environment. Well, that's good to know. So we figured out where it's going to live. Now, we need to figure out the process, the SOP, standard operating procedures, of what do we do as humans on that software. And then you realize that, well, to input a new client, you do this, this, and that. And then you figure out all of those procedures, and then you quickly realize that most of them, or almost all of them, can be automated with AI. It's like we still need humans for review, don't get me wrong, but the AI can do pretty much the whole thing in of itself, and we're going to see a few examples of that. So first off, you found a manual process, and then you identified that it can be automated. You don't need to automate the whole company. If you're thinking company wide and we need to do the AI transformation, all of it today, that's just going to be overwhelming. So just start with something simple, something affordable, something low effort, something it's like replying to emails. That's very simple, right? And then if you start with replying to emails, maybe you can expand to replying to WhatsApp messages, replying to phone calls, because you have the same knowledge. And then maybe that can expand into updating the CRM after the calls, and then it can expand to transforming the whole customer service sector, which can then expand to outbound and sales, which can then expand internally into operations. So you really need to identify first the simple, affordable, low effort stuff that you can do based on existing tooling. You don't need to invent your tools. Pretty much all what we do as an AI company, like at Hexaflow, pretty much all what we do is just orchestration. Hardly do we build our own internal tooling. We use the tools that are out there and we orchestrate them together to do a business need or to fulfill a business need. And that's what you need to do. We usually just develop around it to wrap it in beautiful applications that do stuff, just like Computer, but generally speaking, the tooling is there. Just figure out what's useful and for you and use it. And you're going to figure out the tooling by figuring out the problem. So you start with the problem. I have this software in my business and I have this problem. Can AI solve this? Quick search. Well, there's this tool and that tool. Can I integrate them together? And the answer will always be yes, and I'm going to show you how. So if you're going to integrate these tools together to solve a case, your brain might think, oh, that's software, right? Integrating tools together to solve a problem. That's software. That needs developers and like engineers and quality control. No. You don't have to do that. I mean, hardly ever will you need in your organization to do custom code development nowadays to integrate the AI tools. You could pretty much no code is the way to go for 90% of the use cases that we've seen throughout the company's history. And that's great news, right? That's amazing news because no code hardly breaks. Yeah, no code hardly breaks because you don't need to quality assurance for the individual components. You know that they work. And all you have to do is integrate them and just test the integration. So yeah, it's just like 10 times faster to develop. Well, great. Now, is there a piece of no-code software that can give me all of the APIs that I need and all of the tools that I need so that I can build my own automations for the company? And the answer, surprisingly, is yes. For example, just for example, and this is just an example. There are hundreds of tooling, but I love this one because of how simple the UI is. You could use make.com. Make.com, show of hands, who knows make.com before I go into this rant? Yeah, just raise your hand and yeah. Okay, I'm gonna rant. So this is gonna be a quick rant. Let me show you something. So this is make.com, right? The UI looks pretty simple. Even before I just explain to anyone what is going on my screen right now, you automatically know that obviously this has something to do with watching the incoming emails, and then some agent does something and sends an email, right? So the UI is very intuitive, even to just share it with stakeholders. And that's indeed what it does. So this is a trigger. Like we said, an AI agent needs a trigger. When to wake up. So it wakes up whenever I get a new email. And then the AI agent that I chose to be Gemini 2.5 Pro and gave it the instructions to respond in a lovely, nice, polite way, saying blah, 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 blah. And then the input of it should be make.com allows you to get input from previous nodes. So that can be the body of the email, but I have to run it so it can reflect here. But you get the point, right? It's like you're going to respond with these instructions to that input, which changes dynamically because make.com just does the heavy lifting. It's like, I'm going to put the new email here when I get one. Now, what does the agent do? I can give it knowledge. I can just upload files from my company or give it my company website or just so much stuff I can do to give it a knowledge base to know about me. And I can give it tools. Now, anything, if you use ClickUp, for instance, now you can have it grab the AI agent. When it decides, based on the instructions, it can get a task from ClickUp. It can add a task. It can do whatever. We can do Gmail. It can just do stuff in your email. There are hundreds of tools. And for the techies, you could also do your own API integration. You could use Google Sheets. You could do stuff in Google Drive. You could pretty much do anything. Salesforce, Pipedrive. It's just the list is almost endless. And because you have API integrations, also it's literally endless. Zoho. So pretty much you can give the agent any kind of tooling and tell it, this is a tool. Whenever you decide you want to call it, you can call it. Historical workflows looked like this, right? It's like after this node, you want to send an email, but it's no longer like that. It's like, this is the only node and it has access to some tools. And the output of the workflow is based on its decision, not if else go into this branch. That's that. Do you see that paradigm shift? Instead of go to this branch, the AI is just deciding on what to do. And I think that's extremely powerful because this is where we needed humans to do the analysis, to do the judgment, to do the judgment call of which tool to use, to actually use the tools because AI couldn't use them before. Well, right now you can do that. And even if the tool is not there, I just showed you that there's something called computer use agents. Even if you have a legacy piece of software living on your local cloud in your company and there's no APIs for it, you could still have an AI use the computer inside of your organization locally to do stuff. So pretty much anything that an employee can do on a computer is sort of manageable with AI. I'm not saying AI is replacing workers, don't get me wrong. You still need humans for taste, you still need humans for judgment, for accountability, for quality control, for so much stuff. I'm just saying that the boring part of the job can be automated, usually. And you should aspire for that instead of being scared by it. Yeah, let's automate the boring part of my job. Who wouldn't want that, right? So yeah, that's just my quick rant on using no-code tooling to orchestrate your AI automations in your company. Now, to recap, we figured out the problem. We have figured out in the company using the process of look at the SOPs, blah, blah, blah. And we figured out the tooling and we figured out how to orchestrate them. Now, let's take a pause here, though, for questions. Maybe someone has questions before I go into further rounds. So, yeah. Anyone has any questions?
I think for some people, maybe, again, those are new information. Some people maybe already using it, so it could be a bunch of different. Okay, Muhammad, go ahead. If you want to unmute, Muhammad.
Okay, I'm not sure. Yeah, sorry, some kids yelling in the background. Just Chris, how does this compare to like N8N? And I assume your world has been hectic in the last probably 3 to 4 weeks with the new other apps without names.
Like right.
Yeah, if you want to say them, sure.
Right. So N8N is basically make.com. How I perceive it is that it's make.com for developers. So because N8N is, I think it looks more complex on the untrained technical eye. So this is much easier and almost does everything N8N does. But N8N on the other side, it has a self-hosting option, so it can be cheaper to run, but you also need to know how to self-host it. So you need to be a developer, and the UI is a bit more complex. So make.com is for how I like to look at it is that make.com is for non-techies and N8N is for the techies more.
Okay, cool. No, thanks for introducing it to me. I haven't seen it, and it does look a lot easier on the eyes.
Right, thanks, no worries. And yeah, regarding the new tooling that keep coming up, I honestly enjoy it, and it gives me a business, right? I mean, if it's just the same tools that everyone knows, what's AI consulting here, right? So it's like I'm always like it keeps me in the business. Like I know the new stuff, and we learn them, and we R&D with them, and that's how we can help companies. So I think that's good, at least for me.
So I think there is a question on the chat. If you'd like to read it, or should I read it for you?
Right. Let me take a look. I think it's a few questions. Can you? Yeah.
Okay. How would you integrate AI into network troubleshooting or pulling logs from infrastructure like servers, switches, routers, firewalls, etc.? I think this is a little bit technical and deep. But if you want to maybe give a quick insight.
Right. Does the person who asked the question, would they like to clarify any specific pain that the organization is facing, or?
Sue, would you like to unmute?
Okay, no. Good day, everybody. I'm just asking, it's not like an organization is facing anything. It's just based on my knowledge. I started my career as a network engineer, right? But now I build softwares. I'm going to AI now. So I was wondering, because back in the days in networking, you have to manually check the logs, do manual troubleshooting, right? So with AI now, I'm just trying to see how to develop such solutions for network engineers so that they don't have to manually go and start pulling the logs. If I can do because I've been a software engineer, I could like on the of AI now, I can do a bit of integration, right? I also want to know your take on how to implement this so that you can have a solution out there for network engineers, basically.
Got it. Got it. That's a great question. So the thing about logs is that you have two problems with logs, as opposing to like normal knowledge base that you can give to the AI. The first one is that it's a constant stream. You need the live log of what's happening right now so that you can utilize the AI to its maximum capabilities. Like, for example, telling you that, hey, there is something wrong in the logs or there is something malicious. So you need that real-time stream. So that's the first engineering problem. How can you route that data to the AI in a stream? And I think we can dive deeper into it, but it would be like that would take up too much of our time right now because really it is an engineering problem and we would have to come up with different solutions to it. But I'm just pointing you in the direction and I'm happy to take it over after the call. Now, the second problem that you're going to face is context management. So context management, keyword, huge keyword for anyone building AI agents. So do you know the context window? The AI is capable of understanding, let's say, 200,000 tokens in its input as maximum. The largest commercial AI that we can use at scale nowadays has 2 million, which is great, but if you're doing logs, that can get very fat very quickly. So how are you going to manage to give it the exact context it needs? Because maybe something that happened an hour ago is related to the log of this second. So am I going to give it everything in between? Or maybe it's just this and that. But how am I going to know which bytes in between to drop or which pieces of logs? Am I going to do smart filtering? Am I going to let the AI do some kind of filtering? Am I going to offload to the hard disk the logs and give the AI the tooling to retrieve logs based on filters? And I think that would be the smartest idea, which is actually what Claude is using. If you've heard of Claude skills, they basically said instead of giving all of your instructions to Claude, just put it on the disk and give Claude the ability to query it and put it back on the disk. So you might want to do something like that. Now, doing a byte stream and doing context management in the way that I just described is not something you can do on make.com. So I know I said 99% of your problems would be solved with no code tooling, but for some reason you figured out to ask me one of those 1%. So this would require custom code to actually solve those two engineering problems, but you don't have any other problems if I'm not mistaken.
Again, I think Montasem, if I remember correctly, one of the events that I attended with Cisco or Juniper and those big companies now they are implementing already AI tools to check the logs and analyze the problem and even write the reports, write all the documentation. So that's scary, definitely, and helping to support the problem solving in a faster way.
Right, 100%, 100%. So yeah, you could also check those out. Right. My 2 cents, if you're using any tool like Splunk or Datadog, AI can connect and read the logs. So that's also one solution instead of, but in my response, yeah, I was implying that the logs are like on-prem and can't be shared outside of the organization. So that's why you have to do all sorts of shenanigans to access the data. But of course, if you have it on the cloud already, then that's much easier. Great. So yeah, I think those are the questions we have so far. Maybe I can continue, and if you have any further questions, keep dropping them in the chat, and I'm going to pause periodically to check them. So AI agents, which is basically an AI that has multimodal input, potentially multimodal output, and it has a knowledge base. What's a knowledge base? Like I said, there's a limited context window. I just can't give all of my organization's data with every single request as part of the prompt saying, here's my data, now respond to that. That just wouldn't make any sense. And the context window would be too small for the AI to do anything valuable. So the smart solution was, let's do search. It's called retrieval augmented generation, RAG, but this is just the technical terminology. for the non-techies, we're just doing search. We're just storing the documents somewhere, and then when the AI thinks that it's missing context, it develops a search query, and it searches in those documents that you have given it for something relevant, and then takes it in as context, and then keeps going. So the AI agent is by definition capable of doing that in today's terms. And you have to give it your tooling, like I showed you in make.com, which tools to use. And in many scenarios, just using brag or search and some tools are sufficient to automate the tasks. Now, for selecting the right agent for your company, you have to analyze the process, identify the tasks ripe for automation, standardization, and optimization, because these three go hand in hand when you're doing an AI transformation. You automate manual stuff, of course, but in order to automate them, you have to actually have a standard to give to the AI to follow, which is basically your PRD or like the requirements of this automation project. So you need to standardize the process. And by definition, when you do automation, why do we do automation? Like, why am I trying to put AI in the company? Three things. It's basically optimization, but you optimize three variables. So the first one is that you reduce the error rate. Whichever process has a human doing something, human has error rate. AI reduces error rate. That's basically why we do it. The second thing is that we reduce the cost to serve. And the last thing is that we improve productivity, so output quantity per time. So these are generally, for most use cases, the three things that you're optimizing on, or the things that AI in your company aspires to achieve. And this is what you benchmark your AI transformation on. Does my AI transformation make this process better in terms of one, at least, of those three metrics or benchmarks or not? Because if not, then you just walked a long way backwards. Yeah. So for example, now let's take real life use cases. So for instance, we did one real estate agency automation. They basically had a WhatsApp group with the real estate developers, and the real estate developers sent them new data about the units, right? About the villas and the apartments that are being sold in various formats. So it could be a text, it could be an image, it could be an Excel sheet, it could be a PDF, a video. They just kept sending. Each company had its own standard. They just sent stuff on WhatsApp. And the sales agent used to take them manually and input those into the product backlog of this brokerage. Error rate was crazy, to the roof. Imagine just copying stuff off of WhatsApp and not even knowing which of your teammates have seen which message so far, and maybe there is duplicates, and it was just messy. Now, the AI that we did instead understood, we plugged it into WhatsApp, into all of those WhatsApp groups, and then it understood all of those formats, and then it put them in a structured database. So AI solved the problem with little to no observable error rate. And yeah, it identified the information, it put them in a structured format, it put them in a database, and it even extracted the base. Now that we have the data in a structured format, we did a recommendation system to the product backlog or the product catalog of the units. Now they have which is the hottest unit, which one has the largest time to pay in terms of installments. So the data actually made sense. Not only did we solve the data acquisition problem, but the data became useful to do the recommendation system. So it was basically something like this. You get a new message, and now the AI figures out which project this is, extracts and classifies the unit. Is it a rental property, or is it maybe coastal, or is it administrative? And then add the units to the records, and then makes the recommendation and send it to the sales team. I'm not sure if my presentation has that update yet, but eventually we also did an automated AI outbound sales agent. So it would wake up every morning, takes the hottest units, and then does a call for the leads one by one to sell them that unit and updates the CRM. And we actually did it in the Egyptian dialect, which was a challenge, but I think we achieved something great in terms of market standards. And this is sort of part of how that automation looked like on make.com. So it can get very messy. This is just a very zoomed in part of the automation. So if you're doing something enterprise that's actually reliable, consistent, it's not going to be something that you do in a couple of minutes. Now, another example, but I noticed that it's getting darker and maybe you guys need to see me, so let me do the light. Wait. Yeah.
Magician.
Right. So yeah, the next one is travel agency automation. We had a travel agency that also had a problem because they kept getting emails of new reservations from all different listing websites that they had listed their services on. And the humans had to take it from the email, put it on the system, call up the drivers and the hotel rooms and the customers themselves to validate information. So instead, the new bookings now trigger the AI to wake up, take the customer's data, and then the AI would send out welcome emails and talk to them on WhatsApp and get their passport numbers and their room numbers in the hotel and send that to the local office that's going to actually do the operations of the trip. And basically, the backbone of the company is now running on AI instead of humans. The AI does everything. As soon as you book, the guy in the operations know everything and has all of the information that they need because the AI got it from the booking email and contacted the client back and forth to get the rest of the emails and fill in the gap and then sent it to the guys in operations. So basically, whenever something new happens, it extracts the data, updates the records, and sends the welcome email. This is also a sample screenshot of part of the automation to show you how it would look like. Another very important use case, which is customer service. So we had a client that had a Shopify store. They were selling stuff online, and they used to do a campaign on social media and then get swarmed with hundreds of messages of people just asking, how much is that? Do you deliver to UAE? Do you, and so on. So instead, we had an AI agent wired to their Shopify store. So they know the product catalog. Then if someone asks for, where is my order? It knows where the order is. If someone wants to place an order, it places the order for them. And it can also escalate to human support. So if it gets like a hard query, like a refund, it would, because it's connected to WhatsApp, it would WhatsApp the human service agent and then ask them to interfere. Yeah, so I could go on and on about stuff like that, but maybe I could show you one more use case that we've been working on recently with promote.ai, which is automatic content. It's like, how can we get a content calendar for the whole month for a business? Like, how can we have an Instagram account that just every single day, fully automated, posts about the product, the offering, does education for the audience, gives inspiration, publishes to Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So we cracked that out with promote.ai. It does trend analysis. It writes the script. It generates the voice, clones your avatar. So this video of me was never shot. This is my AI clone. And then it does the viral edits with like the captions and the split screen and the B-rolls, and then it publishes the video for you. So you get a full content calendar that's fully automated. We also did the same for automatic messaging, where if someone replies to our DMs or WhatsApp, you get the AI to respond. I know this is in Arabic and not everyone reads that, but that's the demo we have today. But yeah, I think I just want to give you an idea of what's possible here. We live in the future. It's not like, well, potentially maybe some company can achieve that. No, we are. The companies are doing that. And if you're not doing that, it means that you're not the company that's doing that. And that's not a position you should be in, at least now that you have heard me rant about it for a while. So if there's one takeaway from this talk that you might want to take home with you, I would be just to grasp, like I want to inspire you that this is very much achievable, very much implementable, and it has a huge impact on the business if done correctly. So just know that this is something you can do and maybe try to potentially start doing it. And if you need any help during the process, you could go to hexaflow.ai and hire us to do it for you. But yeah, I also